Yeah, and
What-
Texas Brine is the
what-
responsible party, and they are to provide information and data to show that the risk is subsiding, but there's no investigative data to be able to determine that unless, Bruce, do you want to try to respond to that?
Well, wait, let me just say first what I'm getting at is I looked at the subsidence survey that was done in 2012. And it collected information from 95 to 2012. And it said around the center of the dome, around Dow's number 18 well, it was over an inch a year. And then further this way, OG3, it was, what, half an inch?
It varied between a
Yeah.
quarter and a half an inch.
So the point is, we know we're getting subsidence. I mean, I called a guy about, permit for something down at my house today, and he said, flood level survey, elevation survey. And he said, I think I did the last one there. He said, but it's not gonna be any good because that land has sank 10 inches since I did the last one, 17 years ago.
Well, being a floodplain manager, I don't want to complicate things, but subsidence and datum change, you'll see a difference. Datum change is when USGS certifies the datum structure, the structures that surveyors use to measure elevations off of. It was 33 years. They recertified them in 2006. It was 33 years since the previous certification. And so any elevation after 2006, houses right next door to each other have a big discrepancy in elevation because of that. So it's not, surveyors use the structures, the monuments, and when you don't certify them very often, you get in those laxes as well.
How accurate is the data you gave us on half inch, quarter inch to half inch a year? The reason I'm asking that,
Okay, go ahead with.
I had my house surveyed 2 years ago. I was with the guy, everybody knows him, he's certified. And it was way different from what quarter inch to half inch a year would add up in 18 years.
What was it?
2 inches,
2 inches over what period?
18 years.
Over 18 years.
Yes, this whole area.
So that's more like a tenth of, it's a little more than a
Which
tenth of
is
that.
typical in Louisiana, all areas. And this is what I was told.
Yeah.
So I don't know, because that quarter to half inch a year that you're saying, we would be, in 18 years, we would have sunk a lot more than that. So I'm just saying, maybe I'm not quite as concerned.
I understand.
I just want the gas out, is what I want.
Specifically, the people that I'm quoting is, do you remember Dr. Will Pettit, who was called in with Dr. Hecox to talk to us? And I admit that Pettit missed a few things. For example, his first time around, he said the sinkhole would be circular and it would be not larger than 734 feet. I thought at the time that he was really sticking his neck out to give something that precise. But he knows that they kind of missed the boat on that, and that was an early call. It was a guess, if you will. But they've done a much more elaborate study, and the numbers that I mentioned, I discussed with him personally in doing some this Blue Ribbon Commission work a week or two ago, and I mentioned what I just mentioned to you. And they are the company that came up with the analysis that I'm talking about.
So in other words,
And that's the way they see it. But anytime you talk to a scientist, and the more degrees they have, the more they will cite all of the assumptions that they have to make in order to come up with what the number is. They have a model which has data that's fed into it. The data may be correct. The model may represent the real world, or it may be off. But those are the numbers that they have.
So how much would y'all say
those
we
numbers don't
depleted
match.
from the amount of gas they had 2 years ago? How much did we deplete with the amount of wells we have installed now? Did we get 50% of the gas out? Do we get 20% of the gas low?
I don't know, I can just keep.
Well, Dr. Hecox at one time, just to cite with the numbers, but he would be the first one to say that these numbers are not directly comparable, and I agree with him. He would tell us, he originally told us that it was going to be 45 million cubic feet of gas.
You said 100 million the first time.
And then there was another
Yeah,
time,
he downgraded
at various times, he has said 45, 50, 90, 100, and 200. Okay. So, but he has more, he originally said something in the neighborhood of 45. And then the number went up. And
His question is really a good question. How effective have we been?
Yeah.
How much has come up?
We've gotten
What can DNR tell us how
about
effective?
we've gotten about 30 million cubic feet of gas out.
Can we move forward?
Is that correct?
36 million.
36 million.
And they had 44, 50, 60, 70?
Well,
That's the tough estimate. It's something
We
that's
really
come
don't know.
up several times throughout, is where folks are looking for a real exact number, and it is sometimes tough to get that, and sometimes we've seen the situation change as we get new data. It was referenced earlier, where I said, well, you said you need more data, and then come along later, you say you need more data again. Well, that data was good at the time. But as we've seen with this from the start, things change, you
It's
need to get back
dynamic,
down there.
exactly, because you got gas still, that was still coming up, hopefully it's gone, but it's still gonna trickle up over the years because of the shape of the strata. The gas that was trapped lower down is migrating itself up, so it's coming up a whole lot slower than it was a long time ago, so, hopefully we got most of it out. Most of what you have in the aquifer is not dynamic anymore, and hopefully you'll be able to get it out.
What needs to be done to see how much
Hold on,
gas is
Scott's been
left?
holding up his hand. But Scott?
That one question I had is, do we know if it's still being, gas is still being added?
If it's still being recharged?
Right, do we know
That's
that?
one of the things we're hoping to get from testing the ORWs. If we're testing the ORWs and we've seen gas come down, we've seen pressure come down, and we're seeing ORWs that appear to be, depleted. They can't pull any more gas and no more's coming in. That starts leading us down the road to say, okay, that's the corner turned on that. But the problem you have is if you're just going off, okay, we see ORWs that don't flow as much as they used to. There's a lot of reasons a well might stop flowing. Well,
Right.
if you know the
So
oil
we're
gas
just not
industry.
sure yet about that.
Let me just answer it from a layman's emergency manager's way. They did CPTs. They did them early on to see where the wells would be located. And then later on, what later on was last year, over a year ago, they did CPTs again in certain areas. And I'll use the well that's in the parking lot, ORW 36. And it showed a depletion from the earliest CPT. But they haven't had another one to say, okay, how much more has it depleted? If I recall the measurement, it was 3 feet difference, and Bruce, I don't know if you
Yeah, it
can.
was about 3 foot, it was about 50% of what we showed originally on 36. Let me comment, there's a lot of questions about depletion and where we're going. One of the intents and purposes of putting in the pressure monitoring wells is to give us a continuous indication of, is the pressure in the aquifer caused by the gas going down? That's an indication that we're getting the gas out. All PMWs